So just earlier today, I got an email that said, "You have no idea how much I needed this." That was because I had forwarded her an email from someone who has seen her as a speaker on one of these programs, which we do for women change makers. The reality is that we need reinforcements always, especially now with all the chaos that we're trying to live through. Hello and welcome to Earth Gives Community Commons Impact Makers series for February. I'm Rhonda Bannard, and I'm the Executive Director and founder of Earth Gives. We are literally a nonprofit that is all about building community with and through and inspired by climate justice and environmental nonprofits. So we have a strong panel to elaborate on that very idea, especially they have lived experiences in a very diverse way. So from an oil and gas province, from the intersectional movement, and from corporate America, where the pressure is real and really interesting these days. We'll have plenty of time for Erica and Petey and Lou and Susan to ask questions and for us to dialogue, but we're going to kick it off with each of them sharing a little bit about who they are, what they do, and some wisdom that they've learned along the way. So we're going to start with Jared Bluestein from the Calgary Climate Hub. And Jared, I just saw that you're actually hiring a community connector. So please share a little bit about yourself, your work, and drop some wisdom on all of us for mobilizing and building community in these challenging times.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. Hi, my name is Jared, and I'm the Executive Director of the Calgary Climate Hub. So we're a grassroots nonprofit formed in 2017 here in Calgary, Alberta, the heart of the fossil fuel economy and industry in Canada. But actually, I have my background in the worker cooperative sector. I did my graduate degree studying resistances to capitalism and looking at how people are trying to recreate solidarity economies in Vancouver and the Vancouver Island area. And so when I think about really this desire of building communities, strengthening nonprofits, really I think back to this historical negotiation between labor and capital, and that's really where a lot of my perspective comes from. And historically, when you think about this, the state played a huge role in that negotiation, and we can know now, many of us can plainly see that that's not the case anymore. And so when we really think about trying to respond to all of these intersecting issues of inequity that we're facing today, for me, it's all about empowering community. It all comes down to empowering community. It doesn't matter what issue you're trying to confront. We need to educate, empower, and connect people to stand up for the issues that they care about. And, we do that as meaningful allies across multiple spaces and sectors. And in doing that, we don't come in and tell people what they want. We survey community, we ask community, we talk to community, we build programs, we build community that way, respond to people. So here at the Calgary Climate Hub, it's been an exciting couple of years. We've had a huge growth in our community development actions. As Rhonda just mentioned, we are hiring a community connector, and that's a really exciting grant position I just got through a partnership with CARIA and CDLI, the Community for Development and Learning. And so this program essentially allows us to get a free position. It's 25 hours a week paid for by CARIA and CDLI, and their whole role is focused on connecting community and bringing more people into our programs. And this is actually focused on two key areas. One is our Eco Elders program. So we work with seniors, trying to, again, empower, educate, and connect them on climate actions that they care about. And so, what that's looked like, seniors are an unruly group to try and organize, if I can say so. There's a lot of passion, there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of time, which is great for people to commit to the things that they care about. And so, what I've really wanted and hoped for is to get these seniors into council every day, just being a thorn in the side of our municipal politics for climate outcomes. But what they would like, what they would like to do is hold flash mobs and protests and direct actions. And so, I think our role as directors or managers of nonprofits or community spaces is to really like empower people to do the things they care about. And so I'm doing everything I can to help them organize more flash mobs and protests. I'm urging them to do street theater in the plus 15s here in Calgary. So we have really interesting office and building design in Calgary. We have things called plus 15s that connect a huge chunk of our core downtown, about 15 feet up off the ground. They're like tunnels almost that, bridges across all of our buildings because of the winter to allow people to sort of transfer or travel around. So I'm trying to get the seniors to do like kind of anti-oil and gas street theater in the plus 15s during lunchtime while all the fossil fuel workers are walking around. So that's one area. The other area that we get this community connector position is in a climate justice program that we just launched, and this is really exciting. It's a partnership with our two major universities here in the city called Mount Royal University and University of Calgary, and we partnered with their social work departments. And so what we're seeing is or supporting is teams of social work practicums going around into sort of BIPOC and equity deserving communities to try and draw clear connections between climate action and community or self-interest. And again, this is about building community. This is about building cultural bridges across disparate areas of our city and enclaves. And in doing so, again, we empower, connect, educate people to unify and take action collectively on climate change issues. And it can be really hard when you think about climate action. In many spaces, it's often at least here in colonial Canada, in settler Canada, it's often a white settler space, middle class. A lot of the climate action here in Calgary is typified by those populations. And I think we lose a lot of power and strength without that diversity. And so really trying to increase diversity in the climate movement is super important in my mind. And this climate justice program will do that. That community connector position will directly support us in those outcomes. So yeah, I mean, hard to give like really clear advice, but really what I'm thinking is anything we can do to really empower, connect, lift up people through the things that they care about is how we build power and movement here in the climate action space and beyond. And sort of back to what I started with around sort of the critical economy or taking a more of an economics approach. To me, that is also largely in the power of worker co-ops. That's something that as I shared, I founded or I was in the worker co-op space. I founded a worker-owned restaurant for many years, and I think that's a very powerful thing to do too. It's when you think about empowering people, it's not just about discussion, education, but it's about increasing access to resources and materials in our society. And those can be knowledge, they can be skills, it can be physical material resources. And the way we do that is, I think, by creating worker cooperative spaces, by restructuring our economy. We can all protest, we can all do rallies, we can all do street theater in the plus 15, but I think without rearranging the fundamental structures of inequity in our society, we're ultimately rearranging the chairs on the Titanic. And so we need to do meaningful material engagements that help to redistribute resources and wealth. So I don't know, many variety of topic, no real focus, but that's what I got for you. Thank you
Got
very
a ton
much.
of specific ideas, but first of all, I want to let you know that I'm part of Third Act Arizona for those elders that are unruly. But and I got to canvass with Bill McKibben this past October, which he was complaining about the the temperature here. Of course, that makes sense. Susan asked if you engage Indigenous communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, I should be careful in saying that it's all settler colonial actors. It's not at all. I mean, there's Indigenous Climate Action, ICA. There's, the Assembly of First Nations even just held a climate confluence recently. That's all the First Nation groups across Canada that held an amazing 3-day conference here in Calgary. There are a lot of strong Indigenous actors, Sacred Solar Earth. I can think of so many. A lot of the I guess a lot of the focus, is not necessarily within the urban centers of Calgary, and that makes sense, right? It's about empowering and growing community in their communities primarily, but it is does they often a lot of them have urban focus. Just it's not the primary space you see a lot of the Indigenous climate action groups engaged in, and we are definitely again building connections with a lot of these groups. There's Black Eco Bloom, which is a group of Black women that are taking climate action here in Calgary and across Canada. Um, there's the Aniskum Center, which is a local Indigenous climate action group. So there definitely are a lot, and I don't want to misrepresent that. Um, but amongst the Calgary Climate Hub and a lot of like urban focused climate action groups, it is typically as in my experience, it's typically been a white settler space, and I think the real reality of that again just comes back to that material and structural situation, right? If many people are struggling in many ways to meet their basic needs, then they have less time to commit themselves to something that I think is maybe superfluous or it's not directly impacting them in this moment that they can see. And so, again, any equity deserving group is often represented as such. I shouldn't just say it's just a race issue. It's very much a class issue here as well. We see a lot of people that are unable to participate in climate action because they don't have the time, they don't have the resources, they just don't have the capacity, right? And so this climate justice program is trying to really demonstrate that climate action is actually in one's interest and one's community interest. You support a transition to renewables and increase energy efficiency. Your utilities bills go down. You have increased money to support yourself. You increase food security for you and your community. Again, you have more security, more ability, more capacity, and you're addressing the climate issue. So what we're really trying to do is demonstrate that climate action is all action in many ways.
Love that. Well, we're going to go a little bit south and west from you and hand it over to Ry Armstrong. They are with Sustainable Seattle, which I've come to learn a little bit more about over the past few years and love them. And then we're going to hand it off to Van, who's in the same neighborhood at Microsoft. But first, Ry.
Good morning or afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. I'm Ry Armstrong, use they, them pronouns, the new co-executive director of Sustainable Seattle. If you don't know S2, it's one of the oldest environmental nonprofits in Seattle, founded in 1991. We established the municipal UN SDGs. So we created frameworks for cities to also look at their emissions way back when, before my time. And then yeah, post-pandemic, we're really focused on the work in South Seattle. So the lifespan differential of 7 years based on pollution of the Duwamish River between South Park and North Gate. A lot of our gentrification and like single-family homes and white population lives in the north, and the south of Seattle has always been kind of neglected. So our work is to shed light on that. We also have a soil health and justice program funded through the EPA, which created the first anaerobic biodigester in the region, which was pretty great. We are now fighting for our lives to continue that EPA funding. And so I wish I was in Canada, but we are currently going through some stuff here in the US. Beyond that, we have an amazing fiscally sponsored program. So we have 18 active fiscal sponsors, ranging from Black Star Farmers to Circular Supply Chain Network. So 18 sub-organizations that we pass through 1.4 to $2.2 million in funding every year. Those fiscally sponsored orgs are in our Interweave program, which is kind of a new innovative way to look at fiscal sponsorship that includes partners that aren't fiscally sponsored, just organizations we like to work with. And then also like everything from a youth group in Sammamish who's trying to fight for water refiller station, right? So it's more of an interweave of community than just making money off of giving someone our nonprofit status, which is also helpful, but there's a lot of layers to that. So we have this interwoven basket of community that we kind of take care of and try to keep healthy. And then honestly, right now, a lot of our work is preparing for aggressive federal audits, protecting our nonprofit status, um, being in community. A lot of our community is very afraid right now. And so that is what we're trying to do. We have an appreciation this Saturday, and then we also run the Seattle Green Drinks program. So networking for eco-minded individuals. That's been going for many, 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 many years. And we just brought it back last month, post-pandemic, after 5 years of it being just absent from our community. And that used to have hundreds of people come. So yeah, we are building back at Sustainable Seattle. I'm glad to be here and happy to answer questions. Otherwise, I'll pass it back to either Rhonda or Van to speak more about whoever's next.
Well, I want to ask you one question, and that
Yeah.
is in the interwoven program and in your green drinks, do you see those as the way to community build and mobilize, like in with all those organizations that come together in that basket? Can you utilize that as a mobilization force?
Yeah, Sustainable Seattle has this kind of legacy brand in the enviro space in Seattle. And we saw an uptick of like 60 new volunteer applications on just our general website post-election of people wanting to engage locally. Um, we don't currently have that infrastructure to engage them yet, but we're working on rebuilding that out, really leaning into more digital automated systems that can support the kind of administrative overhead that we currently just don't have in our budget deficit. But Green Drinks, I think, really embraces this love of empathy. We partner with other orgs, so Puget Soundkeepers when we were in Ballard last month, and we're partnering with Basilica Bio this month, and then Seattle Donut Economics and 90, which is a new climate hub that just opened in Seattle. So a lot of these orgs are looking for connection, and I think post-pandemic, specifically young people are looking for in-person connection and may not know how or where to find that in a world that's filled with chaos and noise. So we're hopefully going to bring a little bit of that facilitation and structure to human connection again, and then also talk about something that feels so powerless, right? These corporations have been flooding our world with all of this infrastructure of fossil fuel emissions and recycling, right? 11% of recyclables actually ever get reused once. And so it's this whole, what feels like a marketing scheme for some generations who were born into a world that they've been told forever it's going to end, right? 9/11, 2008, pandemic. There's just this ongoing feeling that there's nothing we can do. And with the climate clock running out in this current administration, that is weighing really heavily on our youth population in Seattle. So we're trying to hold them close and dear and say, all we can do is fight, and hope is an active choice. So that's what we're trying to hold on to.
I love that. Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, it's super interesting to hear the parallels. Like, I mean, just so everyone knows, after your election, we got a massive amount of donations. So there's like there's these unexpected upsides to some dark times, I suppose. And also, we've definitely modeled some green drink programs here. We started running that again, which I agree is awesome. Maybe I can connect with you later, but I'm just thinking like that fiscal partnership structure sounds like such an awesome way to seed and empower more groups to like grow and create their own projects. And we've started this a little bit with one or two groups here in Calgary, but I'm just like wondering if there's like there must be a pretty strong policy that you folks have around that and management structure to some degree. I'm maybe hoping I could just connect with you offline to just pick your brain a bit around that.
Yeah, there's some other orgs that like Shunpike and Fractured Atlas that nationwide are doing that in art spaces too. We have an agreement that does need updating, but is pretty ironclad to reduce risk and insurance and all of the like necessary things to process payroll and process payments to our contractors and vendors. But it definitely could use some improvement. Um, yeah.
Cool. Maybe I'll send you an email later if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. And I'll put my email in the chat for anyone who wants to reach out.
Great. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Van.
All right. Well, thanks, Ry and Jared. Love hearing about what you're doing. And yeah, Ry, I'd be with both of you. I'd be happy to connect and see if there's any Microsoft resources we can help you with, infrastructure wise. So I work at Microsoft. Yes, big corporation. You might have heard of it. And generally, I'm really proud to work for Microsoft because we're trying to hold the line and do the right thing and continue our mission to be sustainable. And we have some pretty ambitious goals. And I have gotten involved with Microsoft sustainability community, which is 10,000 members, and recently became the engagement lead. And as part of that role, I'm trying to figure out how we engage those 10,000 people to do as much as possible to not only kind of learn and promote what the company is doing for sustainability, but also to be a check and balance for Microsoft and look at the areas where we can do better and brainstorm on that. And this organization has done some good things in the past to get Microsoft to do green software guidelines, as well as things on campus. And there's other projects, especially I think around 401k and green banking. You know, banks are a place where if we can get people to move out of the big banks that are funding fossil fuels, that I think we can make a dent. And that's not requiring anyone in a political office to do that. That's, you know, individuals. So that's one thing I'm working on. But in general, our community, we do hackathons, we do lots of Earth Month activities, as well as hold monthly calls and try to just connect people. And yesterday we did a call with our folks in APAC and really heard a lot about what's happening in China and Japan with our employees to take action there. And it felt really good to know, like, here's this global organization that's doing things. A hackathon is a moment where people can kind of quit their day job for like 3 or 4 days and actually work on a project for good. So years ago, I worked on a hackathon when everything happened with George Floyd to try to work on social justice. And we developed a card game that was kind of somewhere between Uno and Cards Against Humanity. And it was this really great opportunity to get a bunch of people in a room and make people vulnerable while they thought they were playing a game. And very often the conversation just really led to really deep conversations and not ever finishing the game, and it actually became a company product for a little while. So that's an example of a hackathon, but there's lots of different things that people can do. Unfortunately, the card game is no longer around but it was called Truth and Insights. Excuse me. And the person who developed it is actually now doing a whole other things. I can tell you about that later. But yeah, generally, you know, my goal right now is to build the Rebel Alliance. And I think there's a lot of good people doing good things, and we need to inspire each other. We need to be positive. Even if I'm not feeling positive, I'm going to be positive when I talk to other people in the community and try to keep building. Because if we all turtle at this moment, then we're, you know, going off the clock when we need to be running full speed. So one of the interesting things that I did recently is Climate Voice hosted a talk with other groups like the SEC, which is Microsoft's Sustainable Connected Community that I'm part of. And we had people from Google and Pinterest and Salesforce on the call. And recently we had a second call, and we're actually looking at potentially doing some kind of large event and try to get our corporate leaders involved and bring out people from each company to like really talk about initiatives and create campaigns from a corporate level where we think we can make a difference. And I think that would be pretty powerful. And if we can keep building on that mission and keep building on the companies that are out there still looking to do good and not folding like a card table like so many have, then I really feel like that's a good way to make progress. And then generally,
it's so interesting because I have a campaign for you. It's called Earth Gives Day.
There you go.
And it would support a lot of these nonprofits here. And yeah, I did talk with some of your Microsoft colleagues at GreenBiz. And there's even a new feature being added to the website that allows corporations to set up their own profiles and invite employees in to give and attach to nonprofits that you want to support. Maybe some in the Seattle area.
Yeah, well, we should definitely talk about that. And That's one of the great things about Microsoft too, is we're the most philanthropic company in the world. We give billions of dollars each year from employees, and Microsoft matches up to the first $15,000. So it's pretty powerful. And we have opportunities, especially in the month of October, to bring people in and do volunteer events. And actually, any volunteer hours are matched at $25 an hour to the charity. So, I've worked with a couple of charities in the past few years where I've been able to log, like actually when I went to Green Biz this year, I logged 30 hours towards the charity that sent me there, and they got a nice check for it. So anyhow, there's lots of stuff that we're trying to do, and I'm always interested in trying to meet like-minded people to kind of build this alliance and figure out if you're a nonprofit, can we help tell your story? Can we help get Microsoft to, help you with technology? Can we help you with organization? Can we help you with employee contributions? And then from a corporate level, like I said, we're just trying to make more alliances so that we can, go out there and say, hey, we all believe this, and activate employees to take action within their companies.
Van, before I open it up, thank you for that. How do you build your community within Microsoft? How do you not only recruit people, but keep the nurturing process going?
So that's where I think we're at right now. We're kind of at a crossroads where this community was built by a couple of people who are no longer at the company, and it was built to 10,000 people. And I came in and said, they had an open role in this very kind of set structure that they had. And I said, hey, I want to do all these things. And they said, you know what, you're right. We're just going to create a role for you. So I am the engagement lead. And what I'm really trying to do is work through the company to meet all the people that are working on sustainability and tell their story. Because a lot of them, like I talk to them and they're so frustrated. Like, look, I'm doing all this amazing stuff. And then an article comes out and everyone responds to it. And they don't realize that we're doing all these things to mitigate that. And then additionally to engage, the people that are on that list to try to get more people to be empowered and come and work with us. So part of that is we have monthly calls. We had one yesterday, like I mentioned. We also have eco talks where we have people come and speak for an hour on a topic once a month. Earth Month we might do more, and then we have the moments in time like the hackathon where people might get involved in specific projects. But I'm also trying to work, I guess, on new ways to get people engaged and to also get the leadership of the company to say, hey, we think this is important and you should be involved with this. So, for instance, the leaders of the company a couple of times have gone on record and said, we think that sustainability is part of everyone's job. Okay, well, we also think that security and D&I are part of everyone's job, and those are actually in my Connect, which is my yearly review. So I have to show that I've done things for D&I. I have to show things that I've done for security, but we haven't actually taken that step for sustainability. And that's one thing that I would like to do is get that to be part of every employee's review. I also would like to, I just got off a call right before this and talking to our Microsoft marketing people to show more visibility of, okay, what is it in each organization within the company that they're responsible for sustainability, and each employee should know that, and that's not really transparent right now. So I think those are some of the ways that I'm trying to engage people, and then, like I said, trying to do one of these bigger forums where we partner with other companies, and we not only do a big forum like the one we're talking about at the moment is a really great tool called En-ROADS from Climate Interactive. If you're not familiar with it, you should check it out. It's a model they've been working on with MIT for about 15 years, where you can really look at what are all the factors in trying to get climate and temperature down, and you can see what the impact is on a particular region for flooding or drought, or the impact on biodiversity and everything. So I'm looking to have them come do a forum where we have all these companies work together and have LT do that. And then have like a half an hour afterwards where we break into small groups and you get to meet people from other companies and interact with them. And I think that's going to be pretty engaging. So that's what I'm working on right now.
That's cool. I did get to see that tool, the Citizens Climate Lobby. I think one time showcased the MIT work. So yeah, it was really interesting. First of all, I don't think I said congratulations on receiving the Bill Weil Award from Climate
Thank you.
Voice at Green Biz. That's obviously very prestigious as a man with such history at some major corporations to receive that award. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I did want to, the potential act of you getting sustainability integrated into everyone's review is, it's a game changer, right? And I learned or was exposed to something similar. Last year, I went to the Green Sports Alliance Summit in LA, and it was, I think Billie Eilish's mom was on stage, and she shared that what Billie puts in her riders to any venue or arena that she plays at is that they must do composting and all these other things. And I found that it's kind of like the light bulb moment where people actually create shifts on a larger scale just by, what a kind of agreement they have. So I think kudos to you, and that would be a huge win and a huge accomplishment. So
Thank you.
Thanks for thinking that way. So Erica, PD, Lou, questions? Just open it up. Just take yourself off mute and just jump in.
Well, just a comment. A number of years ago, I was working for the Community Action Agency in the county that I was living in at the time, Kern County, California, south of where I live now. It's a high needs county, and it's also a county that has some areas that are very prone to wildfires. And our organization hosted a hackathon, or we partnered with this other, with some local techies to host a hackathon. And the energy at the hackathon was pretty impressive. It took place over a weekend. And by the end of the hackathon, people had come up with like these apps that were brilliant. One was called, the two that come to mind that I remember, one was called Beacon, and it was basically using your phone to send out a signal saying, I am here in this area. What social service providers are near me that I can turn to for help? Another one was tracking the progress of a wildfire in a very wildfire prone area where actually you could see the progress of a wildfire happening. And I thought it was really fascinating that to get these, minds in the same space working on things that could just benefit people. It was I just remember the energy of that, and having been an observer, really, because I was just there to like document and blog about it and do social media about it. It was very, very exciting. So just wanted to share that.
That's cool.
I think go ahead.
One of the great things about the hackathon projects is that you end up working with people that you would never work with otherwise at Microsoft. And those are some of the people, like, just from spending 3 or 4 days with, that I have like some of the most admiration and community with now. And I think it's just a great testament in general is if we can pull together people to try to fix a problem and actually spend some time doing it, it's very possible. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, because it ends up being not so much about the technology, but about the community needs and how technology can meet those needs. It's a really, really powerful experience.
Jared, I'm feeling like there's an eco hackathon in your future.
Well, it just made me think like, actually, I didn't really share a lot about the programs that we do that bring people together. And it's true. It's like when you're trying to address this stuff, the step one is just bringing people together. So like, we host community climate conversations regularly across our city. We just had our first one this year, 2 nights ago. There was over 60 people that came. We barely advertised it. People are energized about community climate action right now because of the political realities that we're seeing around the world. And that's not unique to the US. I mean, here in Alberta, we have Danielle Smith, who's the lead of our UCP party, and she's definitely a little Trump in action. It's just all around the world, really. So it's pretty exciting to see some of the other programs we do. I was talking about making those connections between like material interest and climate action. So we run advocacy campaigns every year. We run 5 advocacy campaigns. So we have one on like affordable, safe, clean housing, like climate safe housing. We have one on active transportation. We have one on public transportation. Our government's trying to open coal mining in our eastern slopes right now again after it's been banned for so long. So we have an active campaign resisting the coal mining. We live in Alberta. We have the largest access of renewable resources in all of Canada. We have the most sun, the most wind, and the most geothermal potential out of anywhere else in Canada. And our government has actively been imposing moratoriums on renewables and trying to prevent the development of our renewable industry. So we obviously have a clean electricity campaign. All these things ultimately are, again, just aimed at bringing people together, giving them skills, empowering them to take action on things they care about, and really trying to make those connections to those personal interests. So, I think, again, whatever brings people together, and then you find that direction and you provide that education and support, it's the most important thing. And one of like sort of the easy entry ones we do, we have a Forest for Calgary program. So we're actually we just planted 5 Miyawaki forests in our city recently over the last 2 years. A Miyawaki forest, it's a program developed by a Japanese botanist named Akira Miyawaki in the 1970s. And he devised this method for creating mature, dense urban forests faster than they would occur in the wild. So it's a bit of rewilding your city. And we've had real success with those, partnering with community associations. And it's just this awesome entry point. People who maybe never even care about climate, but they're like, oh, I'll plant a tree. They come out, and then we start talking about why we're planting trees and the issues we're facing. And I mean, this is all about like flood mitigation and heat dome mitigation, and it's all these things that people understand. They feel it. We are facing more smoke days from forest fires than I'm born and raised here in Calgary. I've never felt the apocalyptic terror that we feel now for like 30 days of the summer, and that's the stuff that motivates people obviously directly into taking action, and creating those easy entry points to get them involved in organizations and community, I think are so important right now. And I just want to mirror what Van said earlier. Like I've been saying ever since your election, like I'm a love demon. Like I can pick what I want to focus my energy and time on, and I can look at the narratives that are negative and despondent, or I can come together with community and create in a meaningful way and make the world that I care about. And I mean, I'm not necessarily an ostrich, but I'm kind of putting my head in the sand, and I'm like, I don't really care to hear about that stuff right now. I'm here with community, making love, making projects, making fun, and that's what I care about. So I think it's really important we hear those messages and repeat those messages nonstop right now.
I love that. And I would say, is there to get to the nitty gritty, and then let's go to Erica. When you have those gatherings, is there something specific you do? Like maybe that would even help Ry. Do you have people sign in? Do you have them connect on something? Like what's that, thing that that you do to make those connections stick?
Yeah, that's definitely been the challenge for us. Like we do get folks to sign up. We get so many engaged volunteers that are like, let's plant more forests. And we're like, we have the capacity to do 2 a year. Check out our advocacy campaigns. And then lots of times people are like, see you later. And then we never talk to them again. So it's definitely a challenge that we face somewhat. That community connector position hopefully will really help like pick up some of that gap is the intention. But totally, like we have over 500 volunteers. When we get things, when we have actions, when we have things, they show up. But then there's also like a lot of just like, the lull and you lose people and the attrition. So yeah, it's probably, it sounds like Ry kind of mentioned the same thing, like all, it's perhaps an issue that many climate nonprofits face. It's like if we could plant forests every day, I'm sure I could fill it with volunteers, but I do not have that capacity. So yeah, definitely something to go up.
What we are seeing, I think, a little bit of is people wanting to do the doing. They want to like be in their body, do something physical, not just like sit and listen to an educational panel about making a task force to look at making a study to make a committee to look at doing something. You know what I mean? Like, so I think the analysis paralysis of like circling the wagon of the despair can really get to us. So I think we're trying to like put physical activities along with those entities and what we're trying to like accomplish in that space. I think there's also a great software called Mobilize that we're leaning into potentially looking at to make sure that when someone signs up for an event, they get an automated text message to remind them the day before and then the day of to confirm that they're coming. And like, we want to make sure that people really understand that by not showing up, you're actually possibly even doing harm on the capacity of the organization. Um, I also think a lot of the noise right now, like if Canada becomes the 51st state, which again, Cascadia all the way. Like I'm like Northern California, Oregon, Washington, Vancouver. Like I'll see you soon. We'll have our own country. No, I'm totally kidding. But that's all just like fodder and great magician work of look over here while I do this over here. And I think we have to, like, we have WISN here, which is the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network, and they are getting tons of intentional, purposeful, automated misinformation about ICE raids and immigration. And so they're having to go through all of these phone calls and figure out what's actual information and what's not. And that is a climate problem. Like that, we're going to have a huge refugee crisis in the next 50 years, and everyone's going to move north, right? Because it will become unlivable down south. So we're not ready for that, but we could be. So that's part of the larger goal of Sustainable Seattle is to create that resiliency long term.
Thank you. Erica. Thoughts, questions? Oh my gosh.
Well, hello, everyone. I was not really sure what to expect, and I have to say I'm absolutely blown away. I will be looking forward to the next event. I think this panel so perfectly represents the diversity of sectors when you look at the intersection of where community and climate meet on a local scale, on a global scale. It's what I'm personally most passionate about in life, and I have also professionally devoted myself to trying to remain connected. As many of you referenced to this little invisible army of people who are working towards the same goal. I had an NGO in Indonesia, and I've been out of the country for 12 years. I just came back about 6 months ago to the US, so it's been this very interesting process. And I have to say, it's been an absolutely beautiful and inspiring process. This experience included in that, the robust community we have in the US of passionate, incredible people with such diverse skills and backgrounds, all united on these universal causes. It's just incredibly inspiring to me. That's just to give you, just to introduce myself a little bit. I found a new, what do I want to say? It's job sounds almost silly because it's a calling, you know, when you do the work that we all do. But I will be the development director for an international NGO that does community-led decolonized philanthropy and development work in Africa, in Zambia, and in Myanmar. We are in this incredible position where the foundation has somehow been managed financially in a very unusual way, where it is supported 100% by donors. And so it is not impacted by the current mayhem, and is in a really beautiful position to step up and help support all of the organizations who are having to shift to different type of funding models. So I'm really interested in finding ways to connect here locally. And I mean that in every term, you know, in the Seattle area, also just within the US. And then how does that also relate to the global work and the global network of people? Because there are these pods in every country, right? And we're all, and it is all connected. So it's just, I'm interested in how to help play my part in facilitating this as much as possible. So I'm just, thank you. I'm so impressed and interested. There are some very specific questions I would have for individuals to learn more about your projects, and but I suppose I wouldn't do that one by one now. I don't, yeah.
Well, if you have a specific question, feel free to ask it. You've got them right now. We have a
Well,
few more
yeah.
minutes.
Well, oh, I should say, I was actually, the reason I came here is one of the first organizations I found in Seattle was Sustainable Seattle. And I had the pleasure of meeting Meilani, who's the other co-ED. She's incredible. And I am committed to helping you guys as much as possible, because it is such a unique position, I think, that the organization is in, with the history and the context and the role it plays. It's, I think it's the time. It's the time for you guys to be flourishing beyond belief, because the need is there. So no, I might think a little bit. I actually don't know how long our session is supposed to go. I'm so sorry. I don't want to take, how long is this? Is it 1 hour or 2?
It's 1 hour.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and let anyone else who wants to have a turn to talk go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll just throw it back because I think there were so many, so much wisdom dropped here, that there's a ton of opportunity. But if we'll start with Jared first, if there's anything you want to reinforce around community building that you might not have said, or just want to repeat again for as a takeaway, what might that be?
Yeah, I think that I mean, really just that message of being a love demon for me is the most important thing. I mean, I use, I guess what I could share is like, I try to adopt or center a critical pedagogical approach in all of my my work. And so really what that says is like every single person, you know, I'm taking this from Paulo Freire. This Pedagogy of the Oppressed is kind of this famous book he wrote in the, I think, 70s or 80s. And you know, really the idea is like every single one of us brings a unique and valued and relevant experience and perspective to the work that we do, and the knowledge that we share and understand. And so when we do these projects, or when we build community, or we work on climate, I think it's just so important to recognize that, make sure that you know, people also recognize their own skill and the capacity and power, and that we really invite people to share in a meaningful way their thoughts and contributions, and we really try to include those collectively. So I think those, yeah, that to me is sort of the most important thing, is just like, you know, leading with love, and really trying to encourage and incorporate this like this shared knowledge, this shared respect amongst people. So that's all I'll say. And yeah, keep making programs that bring people together.
Thank you. In fact, our next one in March is the head of ABC News Climate, which should be really interesting. So of course, you'd be welcome to come back to that. We have to set a date, but it's usually the end of the month. And Jared knows full well that I'm Canadian made. So over my dead body, it's becoming a 51st state. I'll do what I can south of the border to support my family north of the border. Ry.
We just, I was going to say, we just found out before we started that Rhonda's cousin is one of our, he's founded a solar company here in Calgary that's one of our sponsors. So there's a funny little,
yeah, all kinds of crazy connections. And I love the fact that I've connected the three of you. I see sparks going. So I'm excited for that. Ry?
I think the sparks you're seeing are just my espresso finally hitting my system. Yeah, I would just say very briefly that good trouble is essential to the climate movement, and we want to create intentional space that is not apologetic moving forward. And so that I'll just leave it with that little nugget of intentional use, and that we as a community can come together and solve these issues because we might have to. And I'll leave it at that. That's my little nugget.
I love it. And I have to give a shout out to Lou because he's one of my board members. So nonprofits always need to recognize their board members. So yay, Lou. Thanks for being such an incredible supporter. I learn so much from him all the time. Van.
Yeah, so thank you, Lou and Erica, for being here and what you do. And yeah, it's been a great call. I think, just in general, once again, I'm just trying to connect with as many people that want to make positive things happen and figure out how we can all help each other and empower each other and take strength and inspiration from that. I think the one thing from being at Microsoft, kind of going back to, people being kind of reactive to like, hey, an article will come out about Microsoft doing a particular thing and people are reacting and I was one of those people, is also taking a step back and really thinking about, hey, we're in this game. Like Microsoft has said, like we're committed to continue to do this while so many other have folded. And I think there's a fine line between like biting the hand that feeds you and also keeping them in like check and making sure that they're doing the right things. And that's kind of where I'm trying to like figure out where to be right now. Especially, like I alluded to the US Chamber of Commerce campaign a while ago, and we tried to get Microsoft employees to sign a petition to say we should leave the US Chamber of Commerce because they're fossil fuel led, and Microsoft will say, hey, we're for this, sustainability bill, and then the chamber will go and sue. And we got Microsoft to at least come out and say publicly we're misaligned with the chamber. And I think, that there's been some question about what's the next step and do we get Microsoft to leave? And I think right now is not the time to push that envelope, because I feel like it just puts a target on Microsoft's back and is going to distract from other things going on. And that's kind of where I'm saying there's kind of a balance between figuring out like what's our bigger goal and what's going to get in the way of the bigger goal if we're trying to go for some specific things. And that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. So
Great wisdom. Yes. Well, everybody, thank you so much. This has just been wonderful. I'm sad for all those people who missed this incredible conversation. This is like pure wisdom. So I really appreciate what you're doing. I'm glad connections are made. In case you're wondering what my background is, there are all card boxes, because the way I've built connections over my lifetime is by sending handwritten notes to people. And it's been magical. And the power of the handwritten note to folks is really incredible, and it sticks with people. And I often have had people over my lifetime come up and say, I still hang on to your note. It's much harder now because people don't share their addresses. So sometimes I have to sneakily find, what's his address? I want to send him a note, and not just be directly asking. But I think what you probably all alluded to is we just need that human connection. And sometimes it's done by a note, and sometimes it's done over a text or a phone call, or just going up to someone and just saying, I really appreciate you being here, and being really heartfelt. So I thank you for sharing what you all do, and for spending a little bit of time with Earth Gives and our community of environmental nonprofits. So.
I add one more thing too before we close, and thank you again for hosting. Is recently somebody invited me to another forum like this, and I was like, oh God, I don't have that hour, and I really want to do this. And then they ended up cutting like a 5-minute video of it for me, and I was like, wow, like I'm actually going to be able to watch this and learn from this. And we actually just brought in someone on the SEC who's going to help us cut videos and shorter kind of pieces for some of our monthly meetings and eco talks and stuff like that too. So just, I don't know if that's something you've already considered, but just, I think the value of some of these things that can come out, if we can make them into bite-sized snacks for those that are busy or millennials, is a good way to go. So just wanted to
I totally agree. And my son graduated in film and television, and now he's busy doing other things in New York City. So yes, I'm looking for younger interns to help us with that. But yeah, absolutely. I come
Cool.
out of
Well,
journalism and PR, so like you as a marketer, Van, I'm very much of that mindset. We just
cool.
have
Well,
a
I might have
limited.
some ideas for you, so we should
Okay,
catch up on that. Yeah.
that would be wonderful because we've got a
All right.
ton of great content. All right,
Yeah,
Thanks,
it
Jared,
seems like
to
it.
do it. Yeah. You chop it up, share it around. Thanks so much.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Be well.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
All the best.